You wouldn't use one of these to undo your axle. So why would you use one of these to undo that? Welcome to Andy's Motorcycle Obsessions. Well, g'day everybody and welcome back. That was a pretty brash statement, but I'll get to that in a minute about the screwdrivers. This is the sump out of Basket Case. Now last weekend I was going for a ride on the Sunday, and on the Saturday I decided that I'd better change the oil because it was due, and I stripped out the bloody sump plug. Now fortunately for me, I had another sump, so I spent a few hours cleaning it and painting it and putting it on the bike. But had I not, how would I have dealt with that? I probably would have had to do one of a couple of things. Either I would tap this out for a larger sump plug, or I'd fit a recoil thread repair kit, a thread repairer, like a helicoil or recoil. That's one of these guys here. So yeah, I thought, let's have a chat about tools. So these are a thread repair. Essentially all you do is you drill out the old one. They provide you with the right size drill in the kit. You drill out the old thread, you put the helicoil thread in, and then you fit the helicoil itself. They're very, very good when you're putting threads into aluminium, because aluminium can become brittle and hard and very easily strip the threads out. The other thing that happens with aluminium is that, well, any sort of fastener that's exposed to the conditions that we put our motorcycles through, where we're constantly going through heat cycles and out in the rain and the mud and the muck, is that they corrode. And one of the ways that you can, I mean, they makes it for a bugger to get them out sometimes, and that's why I mentioned the screwdrivers. If you're working on Japanese motorcycles, you need to really go and invest in a set of JIS screwdrivers. Now that other one that I had there before was just a Phillips driver, and obviously I had the impact driver as well. Now this particular company, Vessel, they're a Japanese manufacturer. They make these screwdrivers, and this particular one is an impactor. And the impactor is an impact driver, but it only works counterclockwise, so it only undoes the screws with impact. It won't tap them up, or if you've got a left-hand thread, it won't do it. So they rotate 12 degrees with every blow, and that fractures the screw loose and allows you to remove it. And the key difference between JIS and Phillips is actually the profile of the head of the screwdriver. The Phillips screwdrivers have a different profile, and they don't engage properly in the screw, and what ends up happening is you burr the head of the screw, and the harder you try, the more you wreck the screw. That's why you should use the JIS. Well, I'll try and provide you with a small practical demonstration. These are both about the same size screwdriver, and this is an old carburetor body, obviously. I've got one of the screws, and they are JIS in the Mikuni carburetors. So when you place the Phillips driver into the screw and try to turn it, it just works its way back out, it just pops out. When you place a JIS screwdriver into the screw and turn it, the whole carburetor will turn, because it's actually engaging the screw properly. And that is the key difference. All right, I can hear you all now saying, oh yeah, but, and what works for me, and da-da-da-da-da. And the thing is that, you know, you see quite a bit on social media and on forums where people are stuck with a problem where they can't get a fastener out. Now, there's just a couple of quick tricks of the trade that you can use. The reason that they're stuck in there is because they're corroded, usually. Now, heat is always a good thing. If you've got an oxyacetylene torch or a butane torch or something and apply a bit of heat to the screw, if there's any Loctite on there, it will melt the Loctite. And if it's just corrosion, it'll certainly help with that. Obviously, the old go down to the hardware store and buy an impact driver. They work. They do work, but essentially they wreck your screw because you're punching a different type of profile into it, and it doesn't do it any good at all. One of the methods that you can use when you do have a damaged screw head, and some of these are because people have used Phillips drivers on them, is to use a large centre punch, and not centre punch, a large pin punch, and sit it over the top of the screw and give it a couple of good smacks with a hammer, and hit it hard enough you're going to break the aluminium casing. But what that does is it kind of closes that damaged profile back up in the screw, and the jarring will help fracture the corrosion on the screw, between the screw and the aluminium. Now that is not guaranteed to work, but if you don't have an impact driver, that is certainly worth a try. Now, one of the other methods that I've used successfully in the past is a pin punch, centre pop. I can't get it right. It's a centre pop, centre punch. And what you do essentially is you start with it on the edge of the screw. I'm not going to do it on this one and damage the screw, but essentially you smack the edge of the screw to establish a bite, and then you tilt it and you hit it and try and undo it with the centre pop. It does work, and it's particularly good if you've got a recessed one like this here, where you can't, say for example, get a pair of locking pliers on there and try and free it up, because that's another method that you can use. So I mentioned Loctite. Loctite is a brand name, but they actually invented this stuff. It was a chemist back in the 50s, I think it was, that he actually came up with a formula that inhibited the curing of these products. So the way that they work is they cure in the absence of air, so they're an anaerobic product, but they also have to have a catalyst, and that catalyst is metal, essentially. So let's have a quick talk about Loctite, because they're really good products. There's a whole range of them. I've got a couple of examples here, but there's a whole range, obviously, of Loctite products. They're owned by the Henkel company. Now, one of the other products they also make is super glue, and I think they actually were the first ones, Loctite, to make super glue. And there's medical grades as well. So, I've had my foot glued together in a hospital after I shredded it on some rocks. And I know that they did use super glue as a field dressing in Vietnam. However, don't go gluing yourself together, because you're not doctors. You're not, you need to get down to the hospital. But I'm just saying that it can be used to glue your skin together. And when I was working as a maintenance person in industry, we used to occasionally have different reps come along and explain about their product. And there used to be a gentleman that would come along and talk to us about Loctite. And he was a very, very knowledgeable chap. Now, just a quick one for you. If you ever do stick your fingers together with super glue, don't try and cut it apart or do anything like that. Yes, you could go down and have it looked at by a doctor or something, but what you want to try is get something around like a screwdriver and actually work that through, because he's actually done that demonstration live in front of me, and it does work. Now, back to the thread lockers, which is what we're all about. So thread lockers have a couple of different functions. One of them is, obviously, as the name suggests, it locks the screw or the bolt or the nut or whatever your fastener is in position. And they make a range of different products for different applications. Now, the one that I use the most around just the workshop is the 243 nut lock, because 243 nut lock, or the blue Loctite, will let you remove the fastener with normal hand tools, so spanners and screwdrivers, fit for purpose for that application. They provide a seal around the bolt as well, around the thread. So you put a drop of Loctite on and you screw it in, tighten it down to its set torque, that Loctite will cure in the absence of oxygen, and now that it's been in contact with steel, and it will seal the thread up, and that helps prevent moisture getting in there, which can cause corrosion, which has them stuck in the first place. So yeah, the 243 nut lock, very good for general purpose, anti-vibration kind of activity. If you've got something that's a little bit tougher, like an exhaust stud or something that you do not want to come out, you can use the super stud lock. A super stud lock will glue the bloody thing in there, and you will not get that out with normal hand tools. You will need to apply heat, and the heat will melt the Loctite, and no, your exhaust heat isn't enough. You need to concentrate a bit of heat onto the stud. Get it nice and hot. You'll smell that Loctite when it releases, and then just wind it out. Another one that you can use that is not a thread locker is the opposite of that, which is anti-seize. So anti-seize, it's available in different configurations. This particular one's like a lipstick tube. You put a dab on your thread and you wind it in, and that will prevent corrosion, seal the thread, and allow you to be able to release it quite easily. Where you don't want to use this stuff is anywhere near a ball bearing. Now, I've seen people put it in bearing housings and put it inside bearings where they put the shaft in. Bad idea, because it gets into the bearing and it will cause premature failure of the bearing. It'll accelerate the wear of the bearing. So good for nuts and bolts, not good for rotating parts. This one is a retaining compound. This is for use on things like ball bearings, where you've got an interference fit in a housing. If you want to ensure that your outer race is caught in that housing and it isn't going to shift around, you can use a bit of retaining compound, just a drop or two, put it down in the housing. Now, it may mean that when you go to release that bearing, you need to apply heat to release the Loctite, but it will ensure that it doesn't float around in there. This one is a wick-in. Now, the wick-in is pretty clever in that this works on pre-assembled parts. So if you've got a nut or a bolt or a fastener that has already been locked in position and you want to apply a little bit of extra security to that, you can put a drop of this on the thread and it will wick its way in. Because general threads on most machinery is a binded, what they call a binding thread. So they're a V shape and they load on one side, and as you tighten it, it binds. That's how it's designed to work. So there's always a bit of a pathway on the non-binded side for that wick-in to work. And the clever thing about this is it'll run uphill. So even if the bolt's upside down, you put a drop on, and a few hours later it will have wicked its way up through the bolt. So that's not a bad one to have either. That's the 290. Now, you'll notice I've got all Loctite brands there. There are other ones that are available who have reverse engineered and copied Loctite, and they work just as fine. So don't be caught up with just the Loctite brand. I mentioned the catalyst. One of the things where I cringe every time I see it, people make mistakes when they're applying Loctite. I said it works in the absence of air and in contact with steel or metal. So what you don't want to do is grab the nib and drag it along the thread of the bolt. This stuff is administered by the drop. So all you need to do is hold it just above the bolt, squeeze the bottle, put a drop on there, and screw the screw in. Don't run it on the screw, because the minute that you put that lid back on, you've now provided an anaerobic environment because you've sealed it from the air. It's been in contact with the catalyst, which is steel, and it will go hard in the tip, and the next time you go to use it, you'll be throwing it away or sitting there digging it out, probably with something metallic, and you will repeat the same problem over again. So that'll last forever if you just apply it properly. Now, it really is a case of many methods, and there's lots of different tricks that you can use out there. But look, I've dealt with these sorts of things all my working life. I'm a qualified tradesman. I've got a lot of experience trying to pull crap apart that is stuffed or seized or locked together, and generally heat and impact is what will get it freed up. Now, listen, I'm going to have a bit of a gripe. Bit of a case of know your market, I suppose. Now, while I have a YouTube channel dealing with motorcycles, and I put a fair bit of effort into putting that YouTube channel out there, I don't have a massive amount of subscribers, probably because I'm shit, but it doesn't matter. I've only got, I mean, I've got over 2,000 subscribers, which is a reasonable effort. But I was having a dig around. I don't go searching on YouTube for similar channels very, very often, but I was having a bit of a look at something, and one popped up from a particular channel that I went and had a look at. So I had a bit of a look around, and I've found a couple of, I want to have a real bitch session here. There are some guys out there that have got fantastic channels with no support, and there's guys out there that have got shit channels with tons of support. One that springs to mind is Delboy's Garage. Now, I'm only bagging this bloke now because of what he did to me, but essentially, he's a muppet. He's got a flash-looking garage, and he's got a really nice, you know, he puts a lot of effort into his videos, and he takes it all very seriously. And I can appreciate what he's done there. I was watching one where he's building this Street Fighter, and my God, he's, you know, some of the stuff I was watching, I just cringed, but I bit my tongue. I didn't say anything. And then there was a part he was working on where he was slapping bog over the top of paint or over primer. And I couldn't help myself, so I made a small comment. I thought, I was always told that body filler is meant to be applied to bare metal. Now, he got really narky about that, and what he did was he replied with, "You should be careful who you listen to, mate." Well, my father is a qualified panel beater, and I'm pretty sure that he would know, and that's what he always taught me. And if you read the side of the tin, I'm pretty sure it'll tell you that too. However, so he replied to my comment, and I thought, oh, well, fair enough. But then he deleted it, the whole comment. And I went reading through, and unless you're blowing sunshine up his ass, there is no other comments. So he's managing those comments by deleting them. Well, guess what, Delboy, you're piss weak. But then I was, and you're rough as guts. And then I stumbled across a couple of other ones that were really, really good. Now, there's one that I've known about for ages. The guy's called Rod Smith Cycles. Now, go and look him up. He's only got about 700 subscribers, but the man has talent, Delboy. Now, I'm not just saying that because he's an Aussie. The fact is that the man does have extraordinary talent. He does a bloody good job, and I think he deserves more attention. So pop over to Rod Smith Cycles. I'll put links in the description so that you can find the YouTube channels easy. The other one that is brilliant is the workshop. Now, I've only just discovered the workshop, but Matt he's an engineer, and he's a no bullshit guy. He's got a great sense of humour, and he just thrashes he just thrashes out all these videos, and it's all around engines and engineering specific to motorcycles. And he's just got a whiteboard in his garage, messy garage like me, and he does a very, very good job. So thumbs up to Matt. And the other one that I've just recently discovered by a young fella by the name of Chase on Two Wheels. Now, Chase has got nearly 700,000 subscribers, so he's doing all right. Now, Chase has just recently taken on a project where he's bought himself a Ducati Monster on an online auction site, which is basically like a wholesale dealer type one for salvaged bikes. So he's bought this damaged Ducati, and he's just doing a component bolt-on, bolt-off kind of repair and customization of this bike, and he's going to give it away to one of his Patreon subscribers. And it's a fantastic, it's fully Patreon funded. And I thought, what a great concept, you know, like if I had enough Patreons, I'd probably do something similar, but I don't. So, but he, the thing I like about him is the naivety of it. So he's got this beautiful workshop with all shiny tools, unlike my crappy been collecting since I was 15 as an apprentice. Everything he's got's like brand new, but and he does a very good job on the production side of it. But he's very, very much a novice, and I just enjoy watching him learn as he goes. So I've started to get a bit of a kick out of his series on this Ducati. I haven't looked at his other videos, but you know, this is fun. All right, it's not, you know, hand forming English wheel, bloody make your own frame kind of stuff. It's buy a part, bolt it on, but you know, he's doing a good job, so good on him. Go and support those guys, I guess. Anyway, that's enough of that rant. Well, there you go. That's so I've had a whinge about Delboy. I've pumped up a couple of guys that I think are doing a fantastic job. We talked about JIS screwdrivers. We talked about Loctite, thread recoil thread repair kits. Happy days. So I've got basket case in surgery at the moment. I got a crack in my exhaust, so I've just welded it up. I've got the exhaust pipe off. It's been repainted. I'm going to throw it back on so I can go for a ride tomorrow. So thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like, subscribe and comment, and we'll be back with more from Andy's Motorcycle Obsessions. Bye.